Let me be real with you. These 5 lessons that I had to learn the hard way didn't come easy. I didn't read them in a book. I didn't listen to them in a sermon. I literally lived them. I cried through them. I prayed through them. And now I want to share with you these 5 lessons that I learned the hard way. So maybe you don't have to learn the hard way too. So this week's verse is Proverbs chapter 4, verse 7, and it reads, "The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom, though it cost all you have, get understanding." And so here are 5 lessons that I learned the hard way. Number 1, peace is priceless. Whew, I used to chase approval, hustle for worth, and entertain chaos just to keep peace with others. Now I protect my peace like my life depends on it, because quite frankly, it does. When I allowed myself to say yes to everything, and especially to those things that I knew I shouldn't have been saying yes to, I was literally hurting myself. So other folks were experiencing happiness at the expense of my own, and they didn't even care or realize what that was doing to me. And so at the ripe old age of 42, I now am very, very fiercely protective of my peace. I have no problems letting go of anyone that is trying to remove that peace. Okay. I fought way too hard and way too long to get to where I am just to let someone come in and, cause a little tornado in my life. I'm not about to do that. Number 2, no is a full sentence. You don't have to explain, justify, or over apologize for setting boundaries. Saying no without guilt is one of the most mature forms of self respect. And anyone who has a problem with you saying no, those are typically the folks that are trying to get you outside of your comfort zone because, they might have control issues. They may be jealous of you. There could be a variety of reasons why they want to do their best to push you outside of your comfort zone. Okay. And I'm not saying there are certain times where, folks pushing you outside your comfort zone is a good thing, but you know the difference. Okay. You know the difference. And so if someone is constantly trying to get you to say yes to things that you know deep down in your heart you shouldn't be agreeing to, those are the folks that you need to remove from your life because they will get you into trouble, but they're not going to stick around to help you get out of it. Okay. Number 3, delay doesn't mean denial. And this one was a very hard lesson for me to learn because as someone who is naturally impatient, I am very impatient with myself. I'm patient with other folks, but not with myself. But as someone who is naturally impatient, you know, if it's something that I want and I've worked so hard to attain it, and, you know, I know I'm not in sin. I know I'm not trying to do, I'm not trying to rob, cheat, or steal to get whatever that is that I seek to get. I just, that denial really messed me up. It really did. And just because something hasn't happened yet doesn't mean that it never will. God's timing is not punishment, it's preparation. And I talk about this in my book, but one of the best examples of this is I'll never forget I wanted to move into this particular apartment. It was in a beautiful area. It was like in downtown. It was in the downtown part of this city. And I didn't get the apartment and I couldn't figure out why. Like it just didn't make sense. Someone else ended up getting it before me. And I couldn't figure out why God did that because it was a beautiful apartment. It was overlooking the park. And lo and behold, I ended up getting a better apartment. It was a little bit further outside of the downtown area, but it ended up being a better apartment for a variety of reasons. One, I didn't have to pay for parking. It had better amenities. And the most important part, I kid you not, I did not realize that what the apartment that I thought was my dream apartment was literally right next to a halfway house. I didn't know that. There was no like, when I drove past, I saw these people standing outside, some half of them were zoned out, and I was just like, "What is going on?" And that's when I realized the building next door to my dream apartment was a halfway house. And to be quite honest, I would have had a lot more issues had I got that apartment because I wouldn't have felt, uh, safe because they were loitering around the cars that were near the apartment. It was just a lot going on. And so that taught me a very valuable lesson. God was like, "Tasha, you're gonna get your dream apartment, but that's not the one." I just thought, man, the first time he said no, I was just like, well, that's it. I guess I'm never getting what I want. I threw up my hands and I repented because that was on me. He was protecting myself from myself. So that's one of the reasons why that has always been a very hard lesson for me to learn. But now I've gotten better at taking a step back when I don't get things right away. And now, a word from our sponsor. Are you a woman stuck in a job that drains you? It's time to shift from survival mode to purpose mode. Join the From Corporate to Content Creation 5-Day Challenge. Each day, you'll learn how to uncover your zone of genius, detox from corporate conditioning, and create content that aligns with your calling. Don't just dream about making an impact, learn how to launch it. Visit starringyou.com and sign up for the challenge today. Back to the show. And I want you to do the same, okay? Because he could be protecting you from something that you may know. In that instance, he allowed me the ability to see what it was he was protecting me from, or you may never know. But just know that God said no for that point in time for a reason. And so number 4, relationships are assignments. Not all are lifelong, okay? Not everyone is meant to stay in your life. And some people are lessons, not lifelines, okay? And that's okay. Growth often requires separation. I I have to admit this has been one of those lessons that was incredibly hard for me to learn as well because there have been certain folks in my life that I really did my best to try to make that relationship work. But I've gotten to the point where if a relationship has to work at the expense of my happiness and that person isn't trying to help themselves, or if me staying around this person is going to bring me down, guess what? That person's out. They're out because life is too short and I'm not about to dumb myself down or dim my light in any way, shape, or form just so someone else can shine. Okay. You're not going to shine at the expense of my happiness. I cannot let that happen. God has put way too many things on my heart that I want to accomplish. There's so many things in my book that I want to really make sure that I do my best to achieve as many of those plans that he has in store for me as possible. And last but not least, number 5, you don't have to be everything to everybody. Okay. People pleasing is a silent killer of purpose. Let me say that again. People pleasing is a silent killer of purpose. Okay. You were created to fulfill God's purpose, not everyone's expectations. And in fact, I end every podcast with a mission statement that I came up with many, many moons ago. Okay. If you're everything to everyone, then you risk being no one. You never know who you will inspire. See you in the next episode. I literally end every episode of this podcast with that phrase that I came up with many years ago, because I truly believe that the moment you start entertaining changing your appearance, your personality, your character, and all of these things that aren't you, that's when you start to lose yourself. And I never wanted that to be the case. I've always wanted to fulfill my purpose and help out as many people as possible, but I'm not going to leave God on the sidelines to do it. And so I realize I may not be everyone's cup of tea. You are, and not everyone is my cup of tea. And that's perfectly fine. But what I will never do is compromise who I am just so I can keep the peace. Okay. I'm not going to do that. I would much rather remove myself from the situation if people are expecting me to change who I am, and or or I would much rather remove myself from that situation and go find the folks that I do, those are those folks that who are my people. That's what I would much rather spend my time doing. Okay? So these are the 5 lessons that I had to learn the hard way, and I truly hope that you don't have to do the same. If this resonated with you, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And I would love, love, love to know, what are some of the lessons that you had to learn the hard way? So I want you to be in a position to share that with me in the comments section, because I'm a firm believer that not all of us have to graduate from the School of Hard Knocks. Okay. I just want to be sure that all of us can win. And I know that can happen by us being more vulnerable and open about the lessons that we've had to learn. So, once again, thank you so much for taking time out to listen to this video. And remember, if you're everything to everyone, then you risk being no one. You never know who you will inspire. See you in the next episode.